Hi, the Golden State Warriors are 11-3. They are the 1 seed in the West, undefeated in NBA Cup play, and went 2-1 on the week. Welcome back to Warriors Weekly Wrap for a much less frantic week this week than the one prior. No struggles for the existential soul of the team this week, and a good amount of rest. I'll go over the 2 wins and the loss soon, but first, after some pretty devastating injury news, the Warriors have another lineup problem, and after another disappointing box score, is it time to have an uncomfortable conversation about Brandin Podziemski? So, De'Anthony Melton requires surgery on his ACL and is out for the season, an injury that he played on in the Dallas game, which means that this steal and this shot were basically his last plays of the season. Super bummed that Melton is gone the rest of the season because he was playing well enough to make himself the best option at starting shooting guard. And from what we've seen so far this season, the starting lineup needs shooting next to TJD and Draymond. And Trace is doing fine, but Lindy Waters has started the last 3 games and been doing enough of a job that I don't think there's any need to change that lineup for now. And really, who cares about the starting lineup? It's the closers that matter, and Melton was certainly in that closing 5, which is always dependent on matchup and performance. This team still runs 11-12 guys deep, but to go through all the options at guard, they can have Buddy Hield for shooting, Kyle Anderson for playmaking and defense with a touch of shooting. They can play Gary Payton II for lockdown defense and athleticism, Moody for corner shooting and extra length, and Brandin Podziemski for ticker. Also, all of those guys are playing next to Stephen Curry and Draymond Green, so I've got a sense of comfort regardless. Alright, the B-Pods conversation. I asked earlier whether it was time to have an uncomfortable conversation about Brandin Podziemski, the second unit point guard averaging 36% from the field, 20% from 3, and 60% from the free throw line, who's been having a weird year averaging only 7.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, and a touch over 3 assists a game. This being the guy that the Warriors deemed untouchable in any Lauri Markkanen trades. And you know what? Woo up with the anti-pod sentiment. I'm not having it. If his shooting percentages were 10% better, they'd still be pretty bad, but no one would be talking about him, and focusing on the shooting percentage is more of a case of judging him for what people think he is or should be than on judging him for what he actually does and the things that he brings to the team. Because the kid doesn't need to be scoring 20 points a night. It's nice if he does, but 10 is kind of the number for him. Most of the time he's on the court with Moses Moody and Buddy Hield. I don't want shots taken away from either of those guys. I'm going to return to an analogy I occasionally use and say that Brandin is the bone marrow player. And what does bone marrow do? I know that it's important and my body would probably fall apart without it, but that's the extent of my knowledge. And Brandin is the same because he does some difficult to describe good stuff. He's out there to play defense, sprint the entire time, chase loose balls, grab all the 50-50s, make the connective passes, set screens, and get smacked in the face, which he's doing a lot. This pass to Kuminga behind the back while chasing a ball out of bounds, that's a bone marrow pass. And because there's no bone marrow stat, his contribution doesn't always show up on the box score. Take this Moses Moody 3. He cuts into space and tells Buddy Hield to come up for what's probably a DHO with Draymond. Buddy turns that down to go into the paint. Desmond Bane switches off Pods onto Hield, and Hield is now under the basket with Edey, Vince Williams, and Bane. Not a good matchup. Play could be dead here. Pods back is to the ball, he snaps his head, sees Hield, gets the pass and whips it out to a wide open Moses Moody for 3, and Desmond Bane can't close out. All that happens in 2 ticks of the game clock. Now, Hield could have possibly made the pass to Moody directly, it would have been difficult, or Pods could have taken the shot. But he found the guy with his feet set and kept the play moving. That only ends up in 1 assist on the stat sheet, but it's like 9 extra bone marrow. I'm still working out the metrics of that stat. But the way that Pods promotes the ball movement when he's out there is one of the things that makes the second unit so valuable. It's a long season, you might not have heard, but they play at least 82 games, and there's plenty of time for Brandin to find his shot, which he'll need to do eventually. But I want to spend the major part of this week's video acknowledging what he's been doing right. Draymond spoke after the Atlanta game saying Pods just needs to take the pressure off himself and that it's the media's fault for putting it on Brandin in the first place, which seems to be Draymond learning his lesson from how he spoke about Jordan Poole struggling in 2023. So I'm going to be a pick-me Warriors fan and agree with Draymond and also say everything's all right. There's no need to put together a Cam Johnson trade. The team is winning games. This happened in 2022. They got off to a good start, lost a couple games here and there, and the narrative was like, this is how I would trade Kevon Looney and Andrew Wiggins to make the Warriors a surefire contender. Then those two were the most important non-Steph Warriors in the playoffs. I'm not saying the same about Pods, but I just think things are fine. Alright, this week's game. Wins against Memphis and Atlanta, and another loss to the Clippers. Heading into that Clippers game, I was really hoping the team would right some wrongs from the first loss, which was kind of sitting on the outlier for this team because I could sleep at night after the Cleveland loss. They hit 16 of 22 threes in the first half. What are you going to do? But the Clippers loss with 19 turnovers and Steph walking off the floor injured at the end of the third, that felt wrong. So the boys head into LA, turn the ball over 19 times again and go 9 from 9 from the line and lose by 3. Retribution denied. But I've got to give credit to the Clippers. They are a better team than I thought they would be, which I mean, they're a Ty Lue team. Of course they're going to be good, but Norm Powell, what a season he's having. Double-digit increase to his average points per game purely out of spite. Addition by subtraction, absolutely. Memphis game, the score ended up closer than the game really was. Memphis brought it close in the end, but Curry didn't play any of the fourth quarter. And the game wasn't really ever in doubt, but it was a cup game, so Memphis didn't want to have a huge points deficit and did something about it while the Warriors chose rest. Second half of that game was a snooze because the referees decided that everyone was there for them. In the first half, there were only 9 free throws taken by both teams. In the second half, that number was 49. Kind of ruined it. And Taylor Jenkins can go and drink a cup of concrete and harden up if he wants to keep whinging about the code. Cup games are fun. I like cup games. Atlanta game, not too much to report. Dubs basically doubled Atlanta in the first quarter and held the line the rest of the way. Things got close at the start of the fourth when the Warriors went scoreless for 5 minutes and B-Pods and Buddy Hield looked at each other, asking which of them was running the offense and each of them deciding it was the other guy. But I did buy Pod's defense already. Dyson Daniels didn't record a single steal, and Andrew Wiggins was incredible. 27 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 blocks, shooting 50% from 3. Wiggins playing like that means good things. It means things like not having to worry about Brandin Podziemski's numbers. Alright, recurring segments. Should Steve Kerr be fired? No. I might actually have to retire this segment after only 4 weeks. He's doing a great job. Warriors favorability index, I have to send DeAnthony Melton to heaven, but otherwise I'm not moving anyone. And the best non-Steph Warrior I will give to Andrew Wiggins for another good week. Alright, cool. I think that'll probably do for this week. Warriors play a cup game against the Pelicans next, then it's at Spurs, at Brooklyn, which I'll talk about next week. Alright, bye.